Alright guys, how's it going? Hopefully you guys are doing really well. Figure we'd go ahead and do something different today. We're gonna be looking at this weekend's lineup of the CDL week 3, or major 3, excuse me, qualifiers for week 1 of the CDL. We've got 10 matchups throughout this weekend. May 13th on Friday we got 3, Saturday we got 4, Sunday we got 3 as well. I figured we'd run through each one, kind of look at what I think is going to happen, kind of run through each of the series and just make our predictions. So let's go and get started. Our first matchup of the weekend, we have LA Thieves versus London Royal Ravens. They had the recent CDL Pro-Am Classic. Thieves ended up finishing second place, and London, I want to say, I don't think, did they make it out? I don't think they did, so hold on, check real quick here. I don't think they made it out of the bracket from what I can remember. Let's check that here. I don't think they actually made it into the bracket, did they? Let me check here. Our bracket. No, they didn't even make it into the quarterfinals of the bracket, or the bracket stage there. And so they're kind of a question mark coming into this. When you look at them and also with Zero basically switching to the SMG role, it's gonna be very interesting to see how they play out. Thieves just seem to be clicking on something. It could have just been the tournament. It could have just been, that they performed really well, but I'm going to go based upon what I saw recently. And with that being the case, I'm going to actually give it to Thieves 3-1 in the series count. I think they're just going to take it. I think they're going to perform better than London. And I think that they're going to get their first week, or their first W in these qualifiers. Second up, we got Optic Texas versus LA Gorillas. CDL Intel recently posted a tweet. You can see it here. They said Optic Texas is targeting ProLute to stand in for injured Illy. General expected to be pushed back to the bench. So knowing that, with that being said, they're going to be having a new person come in. LAG didn't really perform well at this last tournament. They came off of kind of that high of that Major 2 win. And then, to be quite frank, they kind of crapped the bed. None of their players really played outstanding. And Gunless is supposedly going to be coming back soon, and I don't know if that pushes Spart out, because Spart was MVP of Major 2. So do you then essentially replace Spart with Gunless, who's been there and who's been a staple of Call of Duty, or do you keep Spart and try to see what ends up happening with the rest of the season? And then if you bench him, does he get mad and want to go to another team? I mean, there's so many questions there. Also, there's the cohesion factor of Optic. I mean, you don't know how they're going to play with this new player. The usual core 4, that's a top 2 team all day, every day. And they've proven themselves against FaZe, because FaZe can't beat them. Every time they played them, they cannot beat them. So with that being said, knowing all the factors, I'm going to give this one to Optic. I'm going to say they're going to win it 3-1. I think that Dashy and Shotzi are just too dang good. Shotzi's just cracked. And Bruce is playing the best I think I've ever seen him play. So give it up to Optic. They're going to take this one. They're going to get their first win of the Major 3 qualifiers. Next up, I think, looking at this up and down, this might be the best matchup of these first week 1 qualifiers. You've got the Subliners of New York taking on Atlanta FaZe. And this is our final matchup on Friday. And New York just came off a win at the CDL Pro-Am Classic. This was a perennial for the first part of the season bottom 2 team. Like, they could not get it figured out. There were different philosophies on the roster, and then they brought in Paul X, and you saw some improvement. And then they did some trials, and then they brought in Kismet from Challengers, and you watch the way that they played, and you look at their team this last weekend. Kismet was, first of all, going off. Every time I would watch this kid, he was just doing it and just playing at a level that was unseen from him, and it's just crazy. And I'm not, and it's just, it was just an insane thing to see them come out and just take it. But I will say this, New York didn't have to play Atlanta. They didn't have to play Optic. And those are the top 2 teams in the game right now. You get interchange 1, 2. It's kind of hard to say, but right now I think you could probably put Optic at number 1, because FaZe can't beat them. So with that being said, you don't have to play the top 2 teams of the game, and you play LA Thieves in the finals. I have to say that New York's kind of untested with the best teams in the league. And I think that when you add new players, there's going to be that fine-tuning period where you get all the little stuff down, all the little mistakes. So with that being said, I think that this is going to be a closer series than anyone anticipates. I think it's going to be back and forth. I think it's going to go to a round 5, or excuse me, a game 5, round 11. But I think at the end of the day, because of that fine-tuning, because Atlanta has been together for so long, I'm going to give it to Atlanta FaZe. I think they're going to win it 3-2. But I think it's going to be a lot closer than anyone thought. And I think it's going to go to a round 11. So I'm going to give this one to FaZe. But they are going to have to grind this one out. It's going to be grimy. It's going to be dirty. It's going to be a back-and-forth series. And I think it's going to be really, really good. So then we go to like our second series of the weekend. And you've got, or not our second series, our second day of the weekend. And we've got 4 series today. And we've got, starting it off, we got Paris Legion versus London Royal Ravens. This one, I think, is going to be closer than people give it credit for. But I think we all know what the result's going to be. Paris is a team where you've got Tom Gravity, who played phenomenally at this last round, played really good. And Donnie Temp has played amazingly throughout this entire season. But their other 2 players, man, they are just not playing well at all. Like, their KDs were not good. Like Jimbo and John did not play well this last tournament. They did not at all. And I think that until Paris gets some things figured out, maybe does a team change, I think that they're going to be kind of in that last position going forward. You look at New York, and they made a team change, and they just won an event. Regardless if it wasn't a major, it was still an event win with 100K on the line, and they came out on top. So with that being said, I'm going to give this one to London, but I think they're going to have to grind this one out as well, and I think London's going to take this one 3-2 in the map count and the series count. So that will give London, they'll have a 1-1 record through the first week, and unfortunately Paris, got some stuff to figure out. So our second matchup of Saturday is Seattle Surge versus Toronto Ultra. Seattle looks like a team that doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing, that doesn't know what they're supposed to be. Because you look at them during the Pro-Am Classic and you look at how they played terribly. They lost to a Challengers team that they shouldn't have lost to, supposedly worst record Challengers team in this event, and they got smacked. And this is a team that honestly plays really good against some of the better teams. Like they beat FaZe earlier in the season, which is nobody predicted, and then they lose 5 games in a row. So I don't know what they're going to do, but I have this feeling with Toronto being on the uptick, especially with the last tournament, them winning some respawns and playing really good. I got to give this one to Toronto. And I think Toronto's going to win this one 3-0. I think Seattle, until they make a team change or until they switch someone out or do a role change maybe, I don't know. I think they're on a downward swing, and I think they're going to be going that way for quite some time. So next up, you've got Optic Texas versus Florida Mutineers. And this one's interesting. This one's really, really interesting for me. Florida has played Optic really good all year. They have given them a run for their money. They've beaten them, and they beat them in the most recent major. I don't know if that was because of Illy's hand hurting them, but, they're an interesting team. They're a very interesting team. And I really think that with Optic having to bring in a sub, I think that Florida's going to give them some problems. And personally, honestly, I think Florida's probably going to take this one 3-2. I'd like to say Optic's going to win it, but Florida, I think, gives them some problems. And I think that with that being said, I think that Florida's going to take this one 3-2. And I think Optic through this weekend is going to be 1-1. And it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the qualifiers go. Next up, you've got Minnesota Rocker versus LA Gorillas. That's another interesting one that you really, really, you don't know what the heck you're going to get. Minnesota looks like a team that is trying to improve, but is picking up the wrong pieces and rotating out the wrong people. And then Gorillas, as I've said, they've got what's going on with them. They're really good, or they're okay, and it just, they need to figure out what the heck they're going to do. So with that being said, I think this one's going to go back and forth. I'm going to give it to LAG. They've won a major. They have pulled it out, and they did it with a sub. So I'm going to go ahead and give it to LAG. I think they're going to win this one 3-1 to round out Saturday. So that being said, that leads us into Sunday and our final 3 matches of the first week 1 qualifier for Major 3. And our first match of the day is Seattle Surge versus Paris Legion. I've talked about both of these teams earlier on in this video, kind of said my piece about both of them. I think Paris plays better, and I think they're a better overall team together. So I'm going to give this one to Paris 3-2. Simply put, I think Temp is the ultimate hype / like guy you want on your team, because if you are frying and that guy is on your team, you just feel jacked. And for me, I think that that's going to give them the win. And like I said, I think they're going to win this one 3-2. Pretty straightforward. LA Thieves versus Minnesota is our second matchup of the day. Thieves is still kind of a question mark. I don't know what LA Thieves we're going to get, and Minnesota is Minnesota. But I think that Envoy, Octane, Kenny, I think those guys, they get it together, and I think they're probably going to end up taking this one. And through these first 2 qualifiers, I think they're going to be 2-0. I think they're going to beat Minnesota Rocker. I think they're going to beat them 3-1. And Thieves is going to, I think, surprise some people. Maybe they got something figured out. I don't know. I'm just going based off of placements of this most recent tournament, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and they'll be the Thieves we've seen the entire time who just crap the bed and search and destroy. I don't know. But my opinion and my prediction is Thieves are going to take this one 3-1. And then for our final matchup of the weekend, we've got New York Subliners versus Boston Breach. And I personally think this is our second best matchup of the weekend. I think Boston had kind of a interesting Pro-Am Classic. I think that there were a couple moments that will live in a couple of the players' heads for a little bit. And I think New York is just riding that wave of success. I think they're going to play FaZe really good. And I think that that's still going to give them a lot of, you know, like drive and a lot of like, hey, we can do this. And I think Boston is right now just, I think they're a little bit thrown off by this last tournament. And with that being said, I think New York is going to keep playing better and better as I've predicted. And I think New York is going to beat Boston 3-2. I think it's going to be a surprise to a lot of people, because I think people are just looking at this New York team and go, oh, they won a Pro-Am Classic and they beat, I think it's fine. I think something happened. I looked at how that team was playing together, the confidence level and stuff, and they really are, to me. I think they're going to be that team that they look at like the midway point of the season and go, wow, that turnaround. I think, you know, and as much as I hate agreeing with him, Patty P. Aches, he said that Paul X is going to be that X factor for them, no pun intended, and he's going to come in, and if they get, you know, another player that works for them, they're going to be a really nasty team. Well, they just won an event, regardless if you want to call it an event, whatever, and they did it, you know, with what was just stated. So I think New York has a massive upswing. I think they've got a lot of potential, and I think they're going to be a top 3 team when we're done with the season. I think it's going to be FaZe, I think it's going to be Optic, and I think it's going to be New York. And possibly Toronto. We'll see what ends up happening. But that's my predictions, guys, for this first week 1 of these CDL Major 3 qualifiers. And we'll see if I'm right. We'll come back and whatever and see how close I was to map counts, all that stuff. But I think it's going to be a really good weekend of COD. I think it's going to be very, very fun. I think it's going to be back and forth on a lot of these series, and I'm excited for it. But that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you so much. If you could do me a favor, please like the video and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.